Hello and welcome to 31 Days of Terror 2023, day number 26. And I have one story for you today, and today's story comes from Errin. This took place over the course of 2015 to 2017. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend of mine in Southern California. We had moved there together from the East Coast. The story begins while I was back east visiting family for a few weeks. I got a call from her asking if I was back from my visit, which I thought was odd. Then she went on to explain why she was asking. She said that one night she heard me come in the front door, go into my room and shut the door. She called out to me and even checked my room, but no one was there. Another night she heard me come out of my room, go into the bathroom, then back into my bedroom and shut the door. Again she called out for me, checked my room, but I wasn't there. This time she had been on the phone with a friend who also heard it. Now, she has a bit of a dramatic personality, so I honestly didn't read into it too much, but also didn't dismiss it as I grew up around believers and have elders in my family who were mediums. Fast forward to me getting back to California. We talk a bit in person about the situation, and I can tell she is shaken up and 100% sure about what she heard. We were both in California for the next few days, and then she left to go visit family on the East Coast. Now I am in California alone with her dog that I happily agreed to care for while she was out of town. This is when my half of the experience begins. Hang on to your pearls because this is a long one with a lot of details. I always sleep with my door closed, but because I was watching the dog, I didn't want her to feel lonely with her owner gone. I decided to sleep with my door open instead. I began waking up in the morning in a way that was unusual for me. It was abrupt, and I would be completely alert, with my attention drawn to the doorway. A force was drawing my attention to the doorway. I didn't see anything, but I could feel something in the corner of my room, and I could tell it was watching me as I looked at the doorway in wonder. I could tell it liked it. It was a male presence. How do I know this? I just know. I can't explain it to someone who has never experienced it. I just knew. Morning 1, the door is completely open. Morning 2, the door is slightly more closed. Morning 3, it's even more closed. Morning 4, completely closed. Now, morning 4 really hit me because I'd gotten up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. When I came back into my room, I habitually closed my door, but then remembered the dog could get lonely, so I opened it back up. I even held it open in place. When I awoke to it being closed, I knew that I didn't do that. My door had never closed on its own before. Well, I had to get to work, so I didn't have time to stop and ponder, so I went through my usual routine. I ended up with time to spare, so I sat on my bed and began counting out quarters for laundry that I planned to do when I got home. My to-do list began stressing me out, so I tossed the coins back in my makeshift piggy bank, placed it back on my side table and left for work. This is when I have to tell you about my lovely piggy bank that is sure to make you jealous. I had taken a large yogurt container, cut a jagged slit in the top with a pocket knife and declared it a piggy bank. It was a brand and style of yogurt that was difficult to find. I could only ever find it at one Whole Foods, which says a lot considering this was in Southern California. It was organic, vegan, unsweetened yogurt from a specific brand that I can't even remember now. Also, I live a minimalist lifestyle, so when one of my possessions was out of place, I immediately noticed. Everything in my room had its own little home. The yogurt container lived on the bottom shelf of my side table, tucked into the front right corner. When I got home, the dog was acting funny. She was skittish and seemed somewhat nervous. This was completely unlike her. She always went into full gimme belly rubs or I will die mode, but not today. I had to hurry to meet someone I had sold something to via Craigslist, so I went to my room to change out of my work shirt. As soon as I walked in, the air was different and a force turned my head towards my bed, where my vegan piggy bank was sitting on my pillow at an unnatural degree. I stood in complete shock, felt fear, got out my cell phone and sent a picture to my roommate with the caption, "Your ghost is back." And then, like a complete idiot, I said out loud, "What, you need money in purgatory?" I could feel the presence standing right beside me, to the point that when I was sending the text, I actually turned my body away for privacy so that it couldn't see what I was texting. I know it sounds silly, but it was instinctual. It was a female presence and it was short. I put the yogurt container back into its little corner of the side table and went into the bathroom to freshen up. When I came back into my room, the yogurt container was sitting on my pillow again at the very same unnatural degree. This time, an energy physically charged right through me. It was cold and hot at the same time, and it took my breath right out of my body, made me shiver, break into a sweat, scream and start crying hysterically. I ran out of my apartment and into the communal garden area screaming like a maniac. 2 women came out of their units to see what was going on, and one said, "Oh my gosh, I thought somebody was having a baby," and went back into her apartment. The other calmly asked what was up. I began to explain, and she willingly came into my apartment to check it out with me. As soon as we hit the threshold of my room, we could both feel the air change. She left. I took the dog with me to run my errands because no way in fuck was I leaving that sweet girl there alone. When I returned to the house, I did a cleansing routine I learned from my family. I opened every door and window and turned on every single light. I stated my intentions for the apartment, what was and was not welcome, and rubbed olive oil on each threshold, beginning with the front entrance and ending with the rear entrance. I was crying hysterically this entire time, like snot running down my face into my mouth, full on hysteria. When I was finished, I was doing my best to forget about it by going about my laundry and such. Because coins are required to operate the laundry machines, I grabbed the yogurt container filled with change and was walking through the living area to put it with my laundry supplies. As I was doing that, something told me to turn around, and specifically to look at my bedroom doorway. Just as I turned and my eyes connected with the doorway, something ran at me and began doing a tug of war with the yogurt container. I was fighting over money with something I couldn't see, that couldn't even spend money. After about the 4th tug, I spoke out loud to it and said something along the lines of, okay, you don't want me to take it out of my room. And I went and set it back in its little corner of the side table. It had been the same short female presence. That was when I also realised that the cleanse did not work. I retraced it in my head and realised there was one light I didn't turn on. I cleansed the apartment again, this time with a much more commanding demeanour. At this point I was done crying and I was angry that this gold digger was ruining my time alone. I threw the yogurt container full of money into the dumpster in the alleyway and went about my night. It is very important to note what I kept repeating during my cleanse. I told it over and over again that if it had good intentions, was there to guide us, or simply just liked our apartment, that it was welcome to hang out as long as it didn't cause any trouble. I then made it very clear that if it had any ill intentions, such as creating fear and chaos, that it was under no exceptions allowed in our home and must leave immediately and never return. The rear alleyways in the region are set up with dumpsters, standalone garages, and a few parking spaces if you are lucky. They are frequented by homeless people mostly, browsing for recyclables. When I threw the yogurt container away into the dumpster was completely full to the point that the top didn't shut all the way. The very top layer was flattened cardboard boxes. I first emptied my pocket of the change I had taken from the yogurt container and set it on the top piece of cardboard. Directly on top of that, I set the yogurt container filled with money. The loose coins probably amounted to $4. The next morning I was taking the dog for a walk. The alleyway cut directly through the block that we lived on, so if you walked all the way around the block, you passed 2 openings to the alleyway. At the first opening, something was telling me to go into the alley, but I fought it. When we got to the other side of the block, again, something was calling me down the alley. Specifically, it wanted me to go and look in the dumpster. I stood there and stood there and stood there, then apologised to the dog for being an idiot and began walking to look in the dumpster. As I approached, my heart was racing and I didn't feel in control of my actions. I opened the lid and the yogurt container was gone, but the loose change was still sitting there in plain sight. No way a homeless person would have left that sitting right there. Hell, I'm not homeless and I would have taken it. I go on with my day as per usual. 6 months go by. Just a regular night at the apartment. We were just hanging out, My roommate had a friend over, we were listening to music, and I decided that I need to do laundry. I got my things together and began to walk out our back door, down the length of the building to where the laundry room is, set at the rear corner. Via this route, there is a retaining wall that runs the entire length of the building on your left, while the building itself is on your right. People have all kinds of plants and art out there, and it was a stroll that I'd always enjoyed. So as I was walking along, I began taking note of some of the items on the retaining wall, began my laundry and walked back to my apartment. On the way back, I noticed a tomato plant, rosemary, some crystals, a bonsai tree, a yogurt container with a jagged slit cut in the top. Yep, the vegan yogurt piggy bank had returned and was now outside our back door. The kicker is, all the money was still inside. I wanted to itemize all the coins, like really inspect them, but it was already getting dark out there and there was no way in hell I was bringing that shit back into my house. I wanted to do that because just think about all the literal hands the coins had passed through. There could have been evil attached to one of them. It's important to note that I had coins from multiple countries in there from my travels. That's a lot of hands. Instead, I picked it up, hauled ass out to the dumpster, spiked it in there like I had just scored a touchdown on Super Bowl Sunday, slammed the lid, and we never saw it again. I think the piggy bank being outside the back door still full of money was an attempt at trying to get back into our home via temptation. Please recall the importance of the boundaries I put in place, telling it was not allowed inside our apartment if it meant harm. Good thing I'm not a dumb bitch. The story doesn't end here. Well, the yogurt container and the short female presents are gone, but let's now address the male entity that would be watching me from the corner each morning. One night I woke up in a sudden and complete panic. Lying in my bed, there was a dark, evil presence hovering. It was in the far left corner of my room above my closet. It was delighted that I was in a state of pure fear. I could feel it smiling even though I couldn't see a thing. My room had never been that dark before. I waited for my eyes to adjust, but before they could, I said, "Fuck it," and just threw the covers over my head. I couldn't get back to sleep because I had to pee, so I made a break for the bathroom. When I was finished, I was tempted to go and climb into bed with my roommate, but I didn't want to startle her. She would know something was wrong, and I didn't want to ruin her sleep. So I just went back into my room and hid under the covers until I passed out. The next morning, we were both hanging out on different sides of the apartment. Me in the kitchen cooking, and her in her room relaxing. She called out, "Dude," and started saying that she woke up with the worst feeling last night. I asked her to describe it and she just said, "Doom." She went on unprompted to tell me how she woke up all of a sudden completely alert. She said she was scared, but specifically that she was worried about me, that she wanted to text me to check on me, but that she was afraid of what she would see if her phone lit up in her room. She said it was a dark presence that was at the corner of her room where her ceiling met her closet. She said she could feel it watching her. She explained that she just kept lying there trying to calm down. And then she said, "But then I started to feel a little bit better because I heard you get up and go to the bathroom." We had both been lying in bed paralysed by the same entity at the exact same time. It had been hovering over both of our rooms at once, straddling the closets with its evil. After that, the evil male entity left and the apartment was just a regular apartment. He did, however, follow me to my next apartment. He would stand in the doorway to my bedroom and not let me in. No, I could not see him, I could only feel him. He would form a wall with his presence and I could not get through it. When I approached the doorway, I would actually bounce back. I got rid of him after 2 cleanses, at least from my side of the apartment. I think he may have attached himself to my new roommate. I think he had more power in that apartment in particular because of the roommate I had there. In my previous apartment, my roommate was also my friend, so we didn't have many boundaries and definitely no secrets. With that being said, when I performed a cleanse there, I went into every single space stating my intentions. My new roommate was just that, a roommate, so when I performed cleanses there, I only did them on my half of the apartment. I saw that roommate go down a dark hole very quickly. The upbeat, responsible person I had moved in there with became a drug addict who would stay in his room for days at a time. He stopped bathing and began stealing from me. He lost his job and hid it from me. He ended up getting evicted, and I think, but we'll never surely know, it had something to do with that entity being attached to him. I think I had been too resistant of a victim, so it found someone weaker. He was a healthy man upon move-in, and as he went further into darkness, he actually turned grey. I can't make that up, he seriously turned grey. My partner at the time didn't believe me until one night he came over. My roommate actually emerged from his lair that evening, so I ran to turn on the overhead light so my partner could see. He believed me after that. Before you inquire, no, I do not have a picture of the yogurt container on my pillow. I had it for years, but it scared the hell out of me, so I eventually deleted it. I also had set my laptop up to record a full night in my room. This was when I was noticing the door being more and more closed each morning, before the yogurt container ever came into play. I was too chicken shit to watch it, and then my laptop died, so I'll never know. There's always a point in stories like this where I'm like, but what if it's a real person? What if it's not a ghost? What if it's a real person that's wandering around your house in the middle of the night? And that always terrifies me so much more, as I'm sure it did for Errin and Erin's roommate at the time, to be like, this might be a real person. I also think it's really interesting when people, like Errin said, I just knew it was a male presence. I just could feel it. I knew it. We've had so many stories over the years where people just fundamentally, somehow intrinsically know whether the entity or spirit that is watching them is male or female or old or young, that it's just intuitive. They just know. They can feel the energy, feel the vibes. But I'd be thinking that little female energy that was in the house, that short female energy, could absolutely get fucked wrestling with you over the piggy bank. No. Okay? If you're here trying to wrestle my piggy bank out of my hands like that, you best be sure I'm going to start swinging. I'm going to start shadow boxing. It's not going to be effective. We all know it's not going to be effective, but I'm still going to do it. I always think as well that it's amazing when people have this knowledge that's passed down through their families, like the knowledge of how to cleanse your house being passed down through families. I think that's incredible. What an amazing thing to pass down from generation to generation. And the fact that yogurt carton came back blows my mind. Like that little small female spirit, she was desperate for whatever was in that yogurt carton, all the riches that were in there. And it would have been very easy, I suppose, to dismiss your nighttime waking up, feeling the thing in the corner of your room, feeling it watching you, feeling that sense of dread, etc., etc. If it wasn't for your roommate waking up the next morning and being like, I had the fucking weirdest night last night. I woke up really scared, felt this thing in the corner of my room and felt like I needed to protect you, like you were in danger. That's crazy. That's really, really crazy. And anytime I hear these stories of people having what they think is sleep paralysis and then somebody else in the house has experienced the same thing, it always makes me think of sleep paralysis and things akin to sleep paralysis in a totally different light. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and thank you to Errin for sending in your stories. Remember, if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra spooky content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you tomorrow.